Take a deep breath, letting the steady, comforting rhythm of your chest anchor you in the present moment, and exhale, allowing your physical body to sink heavily and completely into the soft surface beneath you. As your eyes close, we are leaving the confines of this room behind, instantly traversing the velvet blackness of space to stand on the silent silver shores of the moon. Right now, you are standing directly on the lunar surface, looking back at our beautiful home planet, waiting for a cosmic alignment, a solar eclipse as seen from the moon, which we, back on Earth, simply call a lunar eclipse. Feel the profound, almost dreamlike lightness of your own body in this place. Here, the surface gravity is just 1.62 meters per second squared. That is exactly 1/6 of the gravitational pull you are used to feeling on Earth. If you were to take a slow step forward, you would feel yourself hang in the air for a deeply peaceful second, drifting slowly and gracefully before settling softly into the lunar dust. Beneath your boots is the regolith, a layer of extremely fine powdery dust composed mostly of silicate glass and crushed volcanic rock. Because there is no wind or water to smooth these particles, each tiny grain is jagged and sharp under a microscope. Yet, to your gentle step, the regolith compresses softly, feeling somewhat like freshly fallen dry snow, crunching silently beneath your weight. Look up into the ink-black expanse of the sky. There is the Earth. From this unique vantage point, our blue marble appears colossal, reigning over the starry canvas. The Earth's angular diameter in the lunar sky is nearly 2 degrees, and this means it looks almost 4 times wider and spans about 14 times more surface area than the moon does when we look up from the surface of Earth. It is a massive glowing sapphire, swirled with delicate white clouds and deep ocean blues, suspended against the infinite dark. Here is something remarkable about your view. Notice how the Earth does not rise, and it does not set, because the moon is tidally locked to our planet, completing one rotation on its axis in the exact same time it takes to complete one orbit around the Earth, approximately 27.3 days. The Earth hangs perpetually in the exact same spot in your lunar sky. It is a permanent, comforting fixture. It is an anchor in the void, while the rest of the distant universe slowly wheels and rotates around it. But today, the slow, the eternal clockwork of the cosmos is bringing a profound visual change. The sun, a blazing, unblinking orb in the black vacuum of space, is slowly drifting behind the Earth. You are about to experience an eclipse from the outside looking in. The Earth and the Moon are separated by an average distance of 238,855 miles. Across this vast ocean of empty space, the Earth casts a long, conical shadow. As the sun slips behind our planet, this immense shadow sweeps across the lunar surface, moving directly toward you. It moves with astonishing speed, racing across the craters and ancient lava plains at roughly 2,000 miles per hour. Yet, because the landscape is so impossibly vast and perfectly still, the arrival of this shadow feels incredibly slow and peaceful. It approaches like a gentle, slow-motion wave of twilight. You watch calmly as the outer edge of this shadow, a region known as the penumbra, washes over the gray plains. The glaring, unfiltered sunlight begins to dim, softening the harsh shadows of the craters. Then comes the umbra, the deep, dark inner core of Earth's shadow. As the umbra envelops your vantage point, the environment undergoes a dramatic, invisible transformation. Without an atmosphere to hold on to warmth, the lunar surface possesses very low thermal inertia. This means the ground cannot retain the sun's heat once the light is gone. Imagine the sudden, sharp shift in the temperature around you. In direct lunar sunlight, the surface temperature boils at a blistering 260 degrees Fahrenheit, or 127 degrees Celsius. But as the dark umbral shadow swallows your location, that temperature plummets instantly. Within mere minutes, the ground beneath your boots drops to a staggering negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 173 degrees Celsius. You are perfectly safe, of course, insulated in the warmth of your own imagination, but you can almost sense that profound, deep space cold settling over the jagged rocks and silent dust. It is a refreshing, absolute coolness, a blanket of pure chill sweeping across the world. Now, direct your gaze back up to the Earth. It has completely blocked the sun, but it is not a dark, invisible sphere in the sky. Instead, it is beautifully crowned in a halo of fire. The atmosphere of the Earth is acting as a giant spherical lens, bending and refracting the sunlight that grazes the very edges of our planet. This breathtaking phenomenon relies on a process called Rayleigh scattering. As sunlight hits the Earth's atmosphere, and the gas molecules scatter the shorter wavelengths of light, the vibrant blues and greens, away into space. This scattering is exactly why our daytime sky looks blue. But the longer, lazier wavelengths of light, the rich reds, the deep oranges, and the warm ambers, pass straight through the atmosphere. They are gently bent inward by the planet's gravity and atmospheric refraction, pointing directly across the void toward the moon. Consider this deeply poetic fact. What you are witnessing, hovering in the sky above you, is every single sunrise and every single sunset happening on Earth, all at exactly the same time. They merge to form a brilliant, glowing ring of crimson light wrapped completely around the dark silhouette of the planet. It is a continuous, unbroken circular halo of dawn and dusk. This glowing ring projects its warm, coppery light across those 238,000 miles of space to gently bathe the silver lunar landscape where you stand in a soft red twilight. The exact color of this magnificent ring is never the same twice. Astronomers back on Earth measure its brightness and hue using the Danjon scale, a scientific index ranging from 0 to 4. Today, the Earth's atmosphere is relatively clear, free of heavy volcanic ash or dense particulate matter, so the ring is a vibrant, luminous copper, a Danjon value of 3 or 4. If there had been a recent major volcanic eruption on Earth, injecting aerosols and sulfur dioxide high into the stratosphere, that glowing ring would deepen to a dark, bruised, almost invisible blood red, a 0 on the scale. But right now, it is a magnificent glowing ember in the eternal night, warming the visual landscape. Unlike a solar eclipse viewed from Earth, which only lasts a fleeting, frantic few minutes, this cosmic alignment is luxuriously, beautifully slow. Because the Earth's shadow is so incredibly large compared to the size of the moon, totality, the period when the moon is fully submerged in the deep umbra, can last for up to 107 minutes. You have almost 2 full hours to simply stand in the comforting embrace of low gravity, bathed in the red glow of humanity's home. There is no rush. Time itself seems to stretch and relax. As you observe this slow, majestic dance of spheres, pay close attention to the absolute silence of your surroundings. You are fully enveloped in the comforting void. Sound requires a physical medium, like air or water, to compress and expand, carrying vibrations to your ears. But here, the lunar exosphere is unimaginably thin. It is so sparse that there are only about 100 molecules of gas per cubic centimeter. To put that in perspective, a single cubic centimeter of Earth's atmosphere at sea level contains roughly 10 quintillion molecules. The environment around you is practically a perfect vacuum. Because of this, no matter how massive the celestial bodies are, no matter the 2,000 mile-per-hour shadow racing across the ground, there is absolutely zero sound. It is a profound, meditative, all-encompassing quiet. The universe is putting on one of its most breathtaking large-scale orbital mechanics displays, and it is doing so in total, majestic silence. The only rhythm to be found is the slow, steady beat of your own heart, and the gentle, cyclic rise and fall of your breath within your imagined spacesuit. Allow this magnificent silence to wash over you. The silence of space is not empty. It is a rich canvas of pure tranquility. The gentle red light from the Earth ring touches the silicate glass dust beneath your feet, turning the desolate gray plains of the moon into a warm, rust-colored desert. For a moment, it looks almost like the iron oxide surface of Mars, but it feels distinctly, uniquely peaceful. Somewhere in the distance, resting silently on this red-lit plain, are the Apollo retroreflectors. These are arrays of specialized prisms and mirrors left behind by human astronauts decades ago. Even during the darkness of this eclipse, scientists back on Earth are using these mirrors. They fire highly focused lasers across the void, allowing the light to strike the prisms and bounce back to Earth. By measuring the exact time it takes the light to make this round trip, physicists can calculate the distance between our two worlds down to a single millimeter. It is a silent tether of light, an invisible, gentle connection between that glowing red ring of a billion sunsets and the quiet, dusty spot where you stand. Here, suspended in the cosmic dark, you are part of a massive, perfectly balanced system. The planets align, the shadows fall, the light bends through the atmosphere, and everything happens exactly as it should, driven by the steady, predictable laws of physics. You are a silent observer of the cosmos, feeling lighter, calmer, and more at peace with every passing second of this spectacular ballet. Standing here in the breathless silence of the lunar landscape, bathed in the soft, copper twilight of a billion simultaneous earthly sunsets, you are witnessing an event of extraordinary geometric precision. To understand the profound rarity of this exact moment, we must look to the invisible architecture of the solar system. The alignment you are currently observing, where the sun, the earth, and the moon form a perfectly straight line across the vacuum of space, is known in astronomy as a syzygy. This elegant term is derived from an ancient Greek word meaning yoked together, perfectly describing how these three colossal celestial bodies are temporarily locked in a singular invisible beam of gravity and light. Picture the mechanics of the cosmos functioning like an immense, frictionless antique clockwork of interlocking brass gears. If the moon simply orbited on the exact same flat plane as the Earth travels around the sun, a plane known as the ecliptic, this syzygy would occur every single month. You would see an eclipse every time the moon completed its phase cycle. However, the cosmic clockwork is far more intricate. The moon's orbital path is actually tilted exactly 5.1 degrees relative to the Earth's ecliptic plane. Because of this slight, beautiful 5.1 degree deviation, the moon usually passes just above or just below the Earth's shadow. For the shadow to fall exactly where you are standing right now, the celestial bodies must meet at specific, invisible intersection points called lunar nodes. Only when a full moon perfectly aligns With one of these lunar nodes during its orbit, does the Earth's shadow find its mark? Notice how comforting it is to know that this alignment, while rare, is entirely predictable. It is a rhythmic, sweeping cycle that has fascinated the minds of our ancestors since the dawn of recorded history. Long before humanity possessed telescopes, long before we dreamed of leaving the atmosphere to stand in the lunar dust, ancient civilizations were already decoding the mathematics of the very shadow currently sweeping over your spacesuit. Look back in time, down toward the surface of the Earth, hanging above you. Deep within the archives of human history, ancient Babylonian astronomers, studying the night sky around the 4th century BCE, recognized a profound pattern in these eclipses. By carefully charting the heavens on clay tablets, they discovered what is now called the Saros cycle. This is a highly precise harmonic period, governing when the Sun, Earth, and Moon return to almost the exact same relative geometry. The Babylonian sky watchers calculated that a Saros cycle takes precisely 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours to complete. During this exact span of time, exactly 223 synodic months pass. A synodic month is the time it takes for the moon to cycle through all its phases, from one new moon to the next. Because of the sheer mathematical perfection of gravity, once a Saros cycle completes, an eclipse nearly identical to the one you are experiencing now will happen again. The ancient Babylonians found comfort in this predictability, realizing that the heavens were not chaotic, but operated on an eternal, sweeping schedule. As the deep coppery red of the umbral shadow holds you in its chill, consider how this very darkness served as humanity's first mirror, reflecting the true shape of our world back to us. In the year 350 BCE, the Greek philosopher Aristotle looked up from the shores of the Mediterranean Sea and watched a lunar eclipse. He documented his observations in a foundational text titled On the Heavens. Aristotle astutely noticed that as the Earth's shadow crept across the bright face of the moon, the edge of that darkness was always perfectly, smoothly curved. Regardless of where the moon was in the sky or what time of night the eclipse began, the shape of the shadow never changed. He realized that the only geometric object capable of consistently casting a circular shadow from any angle was a sphere. This observation provided humanity with its very first conclusive, scientific proof that the Earth was undeniably round. Decades later, roughly around the year 270 BCE, another brilliant mind named Aristarchus of Samos used this exact shadow to pull back the curtain on the scale of the universe. Aristarchus timed the duration of a lunar eclipse. By measuring how long it took the moon to pass completely through the Earth's darkness, he attempted to calculate the actual distance from the Earth to the moon. Through pure geometry, Aristarchus determined that the Earth's shadow was about 2.5 times wider than the moon itself. Modern laser measurements and lunar probes have since shown us that Aristarchus was astonishingly close for a man working only with the naked eye. Today, we know the moon's equatorial diameter is precisely 2,159 miles, while the Earth's diameter is 7,922 miles. This means our home planet is roughly 3.67 times larger than the silver world you currently stand upon. When you look up at the massive silhouette of Earth, surrounded by its glowing ring of scattered sunlight, you are seeing a physical manifestation of these ancient mathematical ratios playing out in real time. At this very moment, the Earth's umbral shadow stretches outward into deep space, forming an invisible cone of darkness that extends for nearly 870,000 miles. You are currently positioned within the widest, most profound part of this cone. The shadow feels stationary, calm, and utterly peaceful, but this tranquility is an illusion born of scale. In reality, the entire system is in a state of rapid perpetual motion. The moon is silently hurtling along its orbital path at an average speed of 2,288 miles per hour. Simultaneously, the Earth is rotating on its axis, spinning its equatorial regions at roughly 1,000 miles per hour, all while racing around the Sun. An astronomer named Johannes Kepler eventually mapped these breathtaking orbital velocities, publishing his laws of planetary motion as elegant ellipses in his seminal 1609 work, Astronomia Nova. Yet, from your vantage point in the silent powdery regolith, all this furious velocity is smoothed into a slow, majestic crawl. The cosmic clockwork ticks on without making a single sound. Historical records show that predicting the exact movement of this massive shadow has even altered the course of human events. On March 1st, 1504, the explorer Christopher Columbus found himself and his crew stranded on the island of Jamaica. Desperately needing supplies from the indigenous population, Columbus consulted an astronomical almanac created by the German astronomer Regiomontanus, which had been published 3 decades earlier, in 1474. Regiomontanus's tables mathematically predicted a total lunar eclipse for that very night. Armed with this knowledge, Columbus successfully foretold the darkening of the moon, a celestial event that secured the provisions his crew needed to survive until rescue arrived. The turning of the planetary gears, predicted on parchment in Europe, arrived precisely on schedule across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, bring your focus back to the glowing red halo surrounding the Earth. While the geometry of the orbits brings the shadow, it is the specific composition of our home planet's atmosphere that brings the color. The visual ring of fire hovering in the dark sky above you is largely caused by refraction occurring within the troposphere. The troposphere is the lowest, densest layer of Earth's atmosphere, extending upward only about 10 miles from the surface. Within this remarkably thin 10-mile shell, practically all of Earth's weather occurs. It contains the clouds, the rain, the atmospheric dust, and the very air humanity breathes. As sunlight grazes the edges of the Earth, it must pass through this dense, particulate-rich layer. The troposphere acts like a global prism. The specific atmospheric conditions down on the surface, the humidity, the microscopic dust from deserts, the temperature gradients, filter out the blue and green light, bending the remaining crimson wavelengths directly onto the lunar plains. What a beautifully serene realization. The exact shade of coppery red, currently painting the jagged rocks and ancient craters around your boots, is a direct reflection of the weather happening on Earth at this exact second. You are thousands of miles away, completely removed from the noise, the weather, and the gravity of the world. Yet you are intimately connected to it through a silent beam of refracted dawn light. Rest in this historical and scientific certainty. The universe follows its elegant rules. The spheres spin, the shadows align, and the math laid down by ancient astronomers continues to unfold with absolute perfection. There is nothing to do here but observe, floating lightly in 1/6 gravity, wrapped in the cool, silent, comforting shade of our home planet. Picture this. The geometry of what you are witnessing right now is entirely different from the eclipses humanity observes back on the surface of our home planet. When standing down on Earth, looking up at the sky, the moon and the sun appear to be the exact same size. each taking up roughly half a degree of our visual field. This optical illusion occurs because the sun is 400 times wider than the moon, but it also happens to be exactly 400 times further away. But from your current serene vantage point here in the lunar dust, that optical illusion is broken. The Earth hanging above you is massive. Spanning nearly 2 full degrees of the sky, our planet appears 4 times wider than the bright disk of the sun. Think of this perspective like holding a large dinner plate at arm's length to completely cover a small silver coin. Because the Earth is so much more expansive from this angle, it does not merely block the sun's core, it swallows it entirely. It completely obscures the solar corona, the sun's glowing outer atmosphere, which burns at 1,000,000 degrees Kelvin and extends millions of miles into deep space. The Earth acts as a perfect, colossal shield, protecting you from the intense solar radiation and bathing the landscape in deep, absolute tranquility. Notice how the ground around your boots has changed its character. In photographs taken from Earth, the full moon seems blindingly, radiantly white. Yet, the physical composition of the moon is surprisingly dark. Astronomers measure how much light a celestial body reflects using a scale called albedo. The lunar albedo is just 0.12, meaning the powdery silicate dust beneath you reflects a mere 12% of the sunlight that strikes it. To bring this down to a familiar earthly scale, the moon is only about as reflective as a well-worn asphalt road. It merely appears brilliantly bright from Earth because it is framed by the absolute, pitch-black canvas of the surrounding void. Now fully submerged in the deep umbral shadow of the eclipse, that worn asphalt color is transformed. It absorbs the refracted dawn light, taking on the rich, therapeutic hue of dark terracotta. What's happening now is a profound shift in the very rocks beneath you. Earlier, we observed the rapid temperature plummet as the shadow swept over the plains. Let us look closer at how the lunar surface physically reacts to this sudden, sweeping chill. In 2009, NASA launched the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, a robotic spacecraft equipped with a highly sensitive thermal camera called the Diviner Lunar Radiometer Experiment. Diviner mapped exactly how different parts of the moon cool down during an eclipse, discovering invisible pockets of warmth known to geologists as thermal anomalies. Deep within the southern hemisphere of the moon, resting quietly in the dark, sits the Tycho crater. It is a massive impact basin, measuring exactly 53 miles wide and nearly 3 miles deep. To understand this immense scale, imagine a depression wide enough to comfortably contain the entire metropolitan expanse of a large city, and deeper than the Grand Canyon. Most of the lunar surface is blanketed in that fine, insulating regolith dust, which loses its heat almost instantly when the sun is blocked. But Tycho is a relatively young crater. Geologically speaking, formed a mere 108 million years ago. Because it is so youthful, its steep terraced walls and towering central peak are still composed of massive solid boulders and exposed rugged bedrock. Here is a highly familiar comparison. Recall the feeling of a hot summer evening down on Earth. When the sun dips below the horizon, the grass in a park cools off almost immediately, soft and chilled underfoot. However, the concrete sidewalk retains the afternoon warmth well into the night. The exposed bedrock in the Tycho crater acts exactly like that dense concrete pavement. During the sudden freezing darkness of the eclipse, while the powdery plains drop to a bitter negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit, these massive boulder fields hold on to their stored solar energy. They become invisible, glowing islands of infrared heat, scattered like warm embers, across the freezing expanse of the lunar night. Look away from the ground now and cast your gaze upward, past the dark sphere of the Earth. As the planet fully eclipses the sun, eliminating the harsh, blinding glare of direct solar radiation, your eyes naturally begin to adjust. The pupil of your eye dilates smoothly, expanding to gather more ambient light, operating much like the mechanical aperture of a camera, opening wide in a dim room. Because the moon lacks an atmosphere to scatter starlight, the sky around you does not merely darken, it deepens. It opens up into an endless, crystal-clear ocean of light. So, suddenly, the Milky Way leaps into brilliant clarity. Without the sun's overwhelming interference, you can clearly trace the dense, glowing band of our home galaxy, a spiraling city composed of an estimated 100 to 400 billion individual stars. You are looking directly toward the galactic center, located approximately 26,000 light-years away in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The ancient pale starlight striking your visor right now has been traveling across the frictionless vacuum of space since the Earth was in the midst of its last major ice age. It is a deeply humbling, beautifully grounding sight, wrapping you in a blanket of ancient light. Shift your attention back to the massive silhouette of the Earth. Because the sun is situated directly behind our world, the entire hemisphere facing you is engulfed in its own nighttime. It is not an entirely black, featureless void, however. Along the edges of the invisible continents, faint, golden web-like clusters begin to reveal themselves. You are witnessing the collective, glowing signature of human civilization. Major metropolitan areas like Tokyo, London, and New York emit enough artificial light to be faintly visible across 238,000 miles of empty space. Floating there, the Earth resembles a dark, smooth river stone, gently speckled with tiny, glowing patches of bioluminescent algae. It is a quiet, glowing reminder of home, resting peacefully in the dark. At this very moment, you are tethered to that glowing bioluminescent sphere by the elegant mechanics of gravity. In 1687, Sir Isaac Newton published his law of universal gravitation, establishing that every particle of mass in the universe attracts every other particle. The Earth is unimaginably massive, weighing in at roughly 5.97 multiplied by 10 to the 24th power kilograms. It is this sheer titanic bulk that effortlessly holds the moon in its orbit, pulling on the lunar mass with a constant, unyielding force of approximately 200 billion newtons. To visualize this invisible muscular tether, imagine a solid steel cable stretching all the way from the Earth to the moon, measuring almost 500 miles thick. That is the physical strength required to keep the moon from flying off into deep space. Yet, despite this colossal exertion of force, the experience feels completely weightless to you. The pull of gravity manifests only as a gentle, stabilizing anchor, in keeping this entire cosmic ballet in perfect, harmonious balance. You are safe, held securely by the invisible mathematics of the cosmos. Notice how the transition between light and dark across the lunar surface was not a sharp, sudden line. The darkness arrived softly. This gentle fading occurs because the sun is not a single, microscopic point of light. It is an immense sphere, measuring 864,000 miles across. When a light source is significantly larger than a single point, it naturally creates two distinct layers of shadows. You can easily test this optical principle in a familiar setting. If you hold your hand very close to a tabletop, directly beneath a wide desk lamp, the shadow your hand casts is sharp, with a hard, distinct edge. But if you slowly pull your hand higher, moving it further away from the table. The edges of the shadow blur into a fuzzy gray gradient. Because the moon orbits so far away from the Earth, the edge of our planet's shadow softens significantly as it travels across space. That fuzzy gray outer border region is called the penumbra, a space where the sun's immense disk is only partially blocked by the curve of the Earth. It takes the moon roughly an hour just to drift completely through this blurred penumbral gradient. It is a slow, gradual dimming, much like turning down a massive dimmer switch in a quiet room, easing you gently into the restorative, deep darkness of the umbra. Everything here happens exactly as it should, without hurry, governed by the patient, steady pulse of the universe. Standing in this profound coppery twilight, surrounded by the softened edges of the Earth's shadow, look down once more at the silver-gray dust beneath your boots. It is incredibly easy to perceive the moon as a distant alien world, completely separate from your everyday life. Yet the physical reality of this tranquil landscape is intimately tied to your own existence. To understand this deep personal connection, we must trace the origins of this dust back through the corridors of deep time. Think back to the chaotic, early days of our solar system, roughly 4.5 billion years ago. Planetary geologists have developed the giant impact hypothesis, which suggests that the early Earth was violently struck by a Mars-sized protoplanet named Theia. This unimaginable collision instantly vaporized Theia and a massive portion of the young Earth's outer mantle, flinging a colossal ring of superheated debris into orbit. Over the course of a remarkably short period, perhaps as little as a few months to a single century, that molten debris coalesced and cooled in the vacuum of space to form the very sphere you are standing upon right now. We know this intimately because of the oxygen isotope signatures locked within the rocks brought back by the Apollo missions. When geochemists analyzed these lunar basalts and breccias, they found that the isotopic composition is an exact, indistinguishable match to the Earth's mantle. You are not standing on an alien world. You are standing on a quiet, detached fragment of your own planetary home. Bring this realization directly into your physical body right now. The calcium reinforcing the bones in your arms and legs, and the iron actively carrying oxygen through your bloodstream, then share the exact same cosmic and isotopic origin as the ancient bedrock of the Tycho crater. You are physically composed of the same elemental stardust as the silent, airless plains surrounding you. When you gaze up at the Earth, you are simply looking at a larger piece of yourself, suspended in the infinite theater of the cosmos. Right now, as you observe the deep red halo of the Earth, an invisible interaction is taking place between these two worlds, one that sounds almost like poetry, but is grounded in absolute scientific fact. The Earth is enveloped by a powerful, invisible shield called the magnetosphere, generated by the churning, molten iron deep within its core. As the relentless solar wind from the sun strikes this magnetic field, it stretches the field outward, behind the Earth, forming a massive, elongated shape known as the magnetotail. Because a lunar eclipse only ever occurs during a full moon, your current position places you directly inside this protective, invisible magnetotail. For about 6 days each month, the moon passes through this elongated magnetic shadow. Inside this quiet region, the harsh solar wind is completely blocked, but something entirely magical happens in its place. Scientists utilizing data from the Japanese Kaguya lunar orbiter in 2017 discovered that atmospheric ions, specifically oxygen created by biological plant life and the ozone layer down on Earth, are funneled straight down this magnetic tail. traveling across 238,000 miles of empty space. Hundreds of thousands of oxygen ions strike the lunar surface every second. They embed themselves deeply into the uppermost nanometers of the regolith. At this very moment, the Earth is quite literally exhaling, and the Moon is catching its breath. You are standing in a silent shower of terrestrial oxygen, a gentle biological whisper sent from the forests and oceans of home, safely stored in the dust beneath your feet. Observe the slow, rhythmic dance of the Earth-Moon system, and you will find that it mirrors the slow, steady rhythms of your own life. Nothing in this universe is static. Although it feels completely unmoving from your perspective, the Moon is currently spiraling away from the Earth at a rate of 3.8 centimeters, or about 1.5 inches, every single year. This gentle retreat is driven by the subtle mechanics of tidal friction. As the Moon's gravity pulls on the Earth's oceans, it creates immense, bulging tides. Because the Earth spins on its axis much faster than the Moon orbits around it, these ocean bulges are pulled slightly ahead of the Moon's position. The gravitational mass of these ocean bulges pulls back on the Moon, giving it a tiny, constant forward boost of energy, pushing it ever so slightly outward into a higher, wider orbit. To visualize this exchange of energy, picture a graceful ice skater spinning rapidly on the ice with their arms pulled tightly to their chest. As the skater slowly extends their arms outward, their rotation naturally begins to slow down. This beautifully simple principle is known as the conservation of angular momentum. In this cosmic ballet, the Earth is the skater, and the Moon acts as the extending arms. As the Moon pushes further away, the Earth's rotation is forced to slow down. What this invisible physics means for your daily life is profound. Due to this tidal friction, the length of a single day on Earth is currently extending by approximately 2.3 milliseconds every century. While a millisecond is entirely imperceptible to the human mind, across the vast scales of geologic time, it changes everything. Paleontologists studying ancient tidal records trapped in sedimentary rocks, known as rhythmites, have determined that 1.4 billion years ago, a day on Earth lasted only 18 hours and 41 minutes. Think about the biological implications of that rapid spin. Every living creature, every ancient ancestor of humanity, had to adapt its cellular biology to a wildly different rhythm of sunlight and darkness. The circadian rhythms currently dictating your own natural cycles of wakefulness and rest evolved alongside the slowing of the Earth. The deep, restful sleep you experience each night is a direct biological response to the gravitational interplay between the planet you sleep on and the silver sphere you are visiting in your mind. The gentle lengthening of time is an ancient lullaby woven into your very DNA. Deep within the mathematics of these planetary bodies lies another stabilizing force that makes your existence possible. The Moon's mass is only about 1.2% of the Earth's mass, or roughly 1/81st of our planet's total weight. Yet, this relatively small companion serves as a massive gravitational anchor. It stabilizes the Earth's axial tilt, known scientifically as obliquity. Currently, the Earth tilts at an angle of 23.5 degrees relative to its orbital plane. It is this exact beautiful angle that gives us our gentle, predictable seasons, the warm blooming of spring, the golden heat of summer, the crisp relief of autumn, and the quiet chill of winter. Without the Moon's steadying gravitational pull, the gravitational tug-of-war from Jupiter and the Sun would cause the Earth's axis to wobble chaotically over millions of years. The tilt could swing wildly from 0 to 85 degrees. Entire continents would be plunged into permanent freezing darkness. while others would bake under unyielding sunlight. When you look up at the colossal dark silhouette of the Earth, rimmed in the glowing embers of refracted sunlight, you are looking at a world that is sheltered and nurtured by the very ground you stand upon. The moon acts as a silent, invisible guardian, its gravitational tether ensuring the climate remains stable enough for forests to grow, for oceans to flow, and for human life to thrive. You exist, breathing and resting calmly, because this 2,159-mile-wide sphere of rock keeps your home perfectly balanced in the dark. Allow your mind to marvel at the sheer tranquility of the moon's interior structure, contrasting with the vibrant life on Earth. While the Earth possesses a churning, hyperactive liquid iron core that creates the magnetic shield we discussed earlier, the moon is a remarkably quiet world inside and out. Seismometers deployed during the Apollo missions revealed that the moon's core is tiny, making up only about 1 to 2% of its total mass, compared to the Earth's core, which comprises nearly 15%. Surrounding this small solid inner core is a thin outer liquid layer that barely reaches temperatures of 2,400 to 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. It is just warm enough to remain partially molten, but too sluggish to generate a global magnetic field. This internal quietness is exactly why the lunar surface has remained perfectly preserved for billions of years, free from the destructive forces of shifting tectonic plates. It is a museum of the early solar system, holding its memories in perfect, frictionless silence. By embracing this deep, planetary perspective, the boundaries between your physical body and the grand mechanics of the universe begin to dissolve. You are not a separate, isolated observer disconnected from the stars. You are a biological extension of the Earth, anchored by the moon, drifting through the Milky Way galaxy. The slow 27.3-day orbit of the moon, the steady 23.5-degree tilt of the Earth, and the rhythmic, steady beating of your own heart are all part of the exact same, continuous, elegant symphony of physics. Rest in the profound comfort of this connection. The universe is incredibly vast, stretching out in an ocean of ancient starlight and invisible gravitational fields, but it is not empty. It is woven together with purpose, stability, and quiet, enduring strength. As we continue to observe this tranquil alignment, immersed in the gentle thermal embrace of the Earth's long shadow, direct your awareness toward the intricate sensory details of this alien environment. The physical reality of the lunar surface is a landscape defined entirely by its microscopic architecture. And look closely at the pale gray surface texturing just inches from the toes of your boots. To your naked eye, it appears smooth and uniform, much like fine talcum powder. Scientists who analyze lunar soil samples know that the average size of a single dust particle here is approximately 70 micrometers across, roughly the exact thickness of a single human hair. However, if you were to place a pinch of this powdery substance under a powerful electron microscope, a rugged, chaotic geometry would immediately reveal itself. Down on Earth, grains of sand are constantly tumbled by ocean currents or smoothed by relentless wind erosion, rounding off their edges over thousands of years. Here in the total vacuum of the lunar exosphere, no such weathering exists. Every single particle retains its incredibly sharp, jagged, and glass-like edges. A massive percentage of this soil is composed of intricate microscopic structures called agglutinates. These are delicate, tiny clusters of mineral fragments, welded completely together by impact glass. To comprehend how this glass forms, we must look at the silent, ongoing rain from the cosmos. Every single day, approximately 5 metric tons of meteoritic material, gently strikes the moon. Because there is no atmospheric friction to incinerate these incoming particles, even microscopic specks of space debris, known as micrometeoroids, impact the ground, traveling at astonishing velocities of up to 45,000 miles per hour. When a speck of dust moving at that extreme speed strikes the lunar bedrock, the sheer kinetic energy is instantly converted into intense thermal energy. The impact site experiences a localized flash melting event, spiking to over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 1,650 degrees Celsius, for just a fraction of a millisecond. This intense heat melts the silica in the rock, instantly cooling into pure, jagged glass. Think of the lunar surface not merely as a barren desert, but as a colossal, spherical photographic plate. It has been perfectly exposed to the raw environment of the solar system for billions of years, patiently recording the microscopic rain of cosmic dust in a delicate shattered layer of glass. You might naturally wonder what this ancient, glass-rich soil smells like. While you cannot simply remove your helmet in the vacuum of space to take a deep breath, human history has already provided us with the precise, scientific answer. When Apollo 11 Commander Neil Armstrong and pilot Buzz Aldrin returned to the pressurized cabin of their lunar module on July 20th, 1969, they brought a significant amount of this fine dust inside, clinging tightly to their suits and boots. Upon removing their helmets and taking their first breaths of cabin air, both astronauts immediately noted a strong, distinct odor. They reported that the moon smells exactly like spent gunpowder or damp ashes in a freshly extinguished fireplace. Chemists and planetary scientists explain this fascinating sensory phenomenon through a process of rapid oxidation. For billions of years, the solar wind has been violently embedding the lunar topsoil with highly reactive ions of hydrogen and helium. When the astronauts brought that saturated dust into the oxygen-rich environment of the lunar module, the severed molecular bonds of the shattered minerals instantly reacted with the oxygen gas. The resulting chemical reaction released that distinctly pungent, metallic aroma of burned powder. Knowing this, you can almost imagine that dry, metallic scent lingering just beyond the sealed polycarbonate of your visor, adding a vivid layer of texture to the silent world around you. Cast your eyes out across the darkened plains, bathed in that deep, terracotta glow. Even without the direct light of the sun, the landscape is softly illuminated by a phenomenon humans have studied for centuries. In the year 1510, the brilliant Italian polymath Leonardo da Vinci was the first to correctly hypothesize the mechanics behind what we call earthshine. Da Vinci recorded in his notebooks that the pale, ghostly glow visible on the dark side of a crescent moon was actually sunlight reflecting off the vast oceans and bright clouds of Earth, bouncing across space to illuminate the lunar night. Astronomers measure our planet's overall reflectivity, assigning it an albedo of approximately 0.30. This mathematical value indicates that the Earth acts like a massive mirror, scattering 30% of all incoming solar radiation back out into the void. Right now, during this syzygy alignment, that 30% reflection is heavily filtered by our atmosphere, casting the magnificent red glow of Da Vinci's earthshine over the craters and valleys stretching out before you. Shift your focus upward, beyond the glowing atmospheric ring of the Earth, and peer into the deep background of the cosmos. Because the Earth's massive 7,922-mile diameter completely obscures the brilliant inner corona of the Sun, a delicate triangular glow becomes visible along the ecliptic plane. This is the zodiacal light. It appears as a faint pearlescent pyramid of illumination stretching outward from behind the dark silhouette of our planet. This ethereal glow is created by sunlight, reflecting off a massive, disc-shaped cloud of interplanetary dust particles. These particles are the ancient remnants of comets and asteroid collisions, drifting lazily within the inner solar system. Seeing the zodiacal light with such absolute clarity requires the complete absence of light pollution. In making your current vantage point deep within the Earth's umbral shadow, one of the only places in the solar system where this cosmic dust cloud can be observed with such pristine, uninterrupted beauty. Throughout this entire celestial display, a profound, meditative silence has reigned. The concept of quiet on the moon is not merely the absence of noise, but a fascinating lesson in the physics of acoustic impedance. Down on Earth, sound travels as a mechanical wave of pressure, rippling through the dense molecular soup of the atmosphere at roughly 767 miles per hour. But here, the molecules in the lunar exosphere are spaced so incredibly far apart that a pressure wave cannot physically form. However, sound can still exist here in a completely different form. If you were to reach up and gently tap the side of your reinforced spacesuit helmet, you would hear a distinct, dull thud. This occurs through a scientific principle called bone conduction. The vibration from your glove strikes the solid material of the helmet. Sound waves travel exceptionally well through solid matter. In fact, the speed of sound through the solid aluminum joints of a spacesuit or the framework of a lunar lander is roughly 6,320 meters per second, nearly 20 times faster than it travels through the air down on Earth. The vibration races instantly through the solid metal and polycarbonate of your suit, transfers directly into the air, trapped inside your helmet, and vibrates your eardrums. In this way, the only sounds that can possibly exist in this environment are intimately close to you. You are enveloped in the rhythmic, deeply soothing sounds of your own biology, the slow, steady rush of air as you inhale, the quiet hum of the suit's life support systems, and the distant rhythmic drumbeat of your own heart. The universe outside remains infinitely quiet, allowing your internal rhythms to synchronize completely with the slow orbital mechanics playing out above. Feel the steady, protective insulation of your imagined suit, shielding you from the bitter extremes of the shadow. We established earlier that the temperature drops instantly when the eclipse begins. This rapid freezing occurs because lunar rock possesses an exceptionally low specific heat capacity, roughly 0.84 kilojoules per kilogram per Kelvin. This exact mathematical property means the silicate dust requires very little energy to heat up, but also lacks the physical ability to store that heat once the energy source is removed. Furthermore, because there is no atmosphere to hold a blanket of warm air against the ground, the mechanisms of thermal convection and conduction simply do not operate here. Heat is lost exclusively through thermal radiation, bleeding instantly away into the absolute zero of deep space in the form of infrared light. The physical environment shifts from boiling hot to freezing cold in mere minutes, yet you remain perfectly balanced. You are an observer completely isolated from the harsh thermodynamic reality, resting safely in a pocket of engineered warmth. Every single element of this experience, the microscopic glass shards, the scent of oxidized minerals, the mechanics of bone conduction, and the rapid radiation of heat, operates on strict, immutable laws of physics. There is an immense comfort to be found in this absolute predictability. The universe is not random. It is a meticulously organized system of energy and matter, functioning smoothly and quietly in the dark. As the Earth continues its slow, majestic passage across the Sun, you are deeply integrated into this perfect machinery, a calm witness to the silent, elegant science of the spheres. Observe how the magnificent celestial alignment is beginning its slow, inevitable conclusion. The grand machinery of the cosmos never halts. It merely transitions from one state of equilibrium to another. Step by step, the progression of the lunar egress unfolds before your eyes. The moon is traveling along its orbital path at a precise constant velocity of 1.02 kilometers per second. Because of this exact and unchanging speed, the deep coppery darkness of the umbral shadow slowly begins to slide away, gradually retreating across the gray silicate plains. The sequence of returning light is a masterpiece of physics. As the Earth moves out of direct alignment, the first sliver of unfiltered solar radiation bends past the edge of our home planet. Light, functioning as both a particle and a wave, leaps across the void at the absolute universal speed limit of exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. At this staggering velocity, it takes a single photon, roughly 1.3 seconds, to cross the empty gulf between the Earth's atmosphere and the visor of your imagined spacesuit. Watch the immediate sequential transformation of the ground. The shadow recedes, and the brilliant, blinding silver illumination washes systematically over the craters. As these photons strike the powdery dust, a localized thermal process initiates. Following the Stefan Boltzmann law of thermal radiation, the surface begins to rapidly absorb energy. Without a layer of insulating air to buffer the change, the ground temperature escalates sequentially, climbing out of the negative 280-degree freeze and marching steadily back toward a boiling 260 degrees Fahrenheit. You, however, remain entirely sheltered, observing this extreme thermodynamic shift from a core of perfect, unchanging warmth. Simultaneously, a massive invisible shift in the space around you is taking place. As the moon exits the protective, elongated magnetic tail of the Earth, the solar wind returns. This continuous stream of charged particles, primarily protons and electrons ejected from the sun's upper atmosphere, travels outward at speeds approaching 1 million miles per hour. Step by step, this invisible gale resumes its bombardment of the lunar exosphere, quietly interacting with the minerals under your boots. High above, the silhouette of the Earth shifts its visual phase. The unbroken ring of red sunsets breaks apart, slowly replaced by a brilliant, waning crescent of bright blue and white. Because of the gravitational phenomenon of tidal locking, the Earth does not travel across your sky. It remains perfectly, eternally stationary at this exact latitude and longitude. The only thing that changes is the gradual sweeping angle of the sunlight illuminating its oceans. You trace the journey of your own existence backward through the infinite architecture of this universe. To truly comprehend the comfort of this empty void, you must understand the sequential process of nucleosynthesis that built your physical form. Billions of years ago, deep within the crushing gravitational core of a primordial star, hydrogen atoms were subjected to temperatures exceeding 15 million degrees Celsius. Through the step-by-step process of nuclear fusion, those hydrogen protons collided and fused, forging helium. Over immense spans of time, as that ancient star exhausted its primary fuel, it contracted. The internal pressure escalated, sequentially fusing heavier and heavier elements: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and eventually iron. when the star's iron core became too massive to support its own weight against gravity, a spectacular physical process occurred. The core collapsed inward at a fraction of the speed of light, rebounded, and triggered a supernova. That violent ancient explosion accelerated elemental material outward at 30,000 kilometers per second, seeding the barren clouds of the Milky Way with the building blocks of life. The iron currently binding to the oxygen molecules in your bloodstream was forged in that exact stellar furnace. The calcium solidifying the skeletal structure of your resting body was synthesized in the dying moments of a collapsing sun. You are not a visitor in this cosmos. You are a complex biological arrangement of its most ancient materials. You are stardust, temporarily organized into a consciousness capable of looking back at the sky. Focus your awareness entirely on your physical body now, resting safely in the quiet dark. In this imagined 1/6 gravity environment, a profound biological process of decompression occurs. Down on Earth, gravity constantly compresses your spine. But here, without that relentless downward force, your intervertebral discs gradually absorb surrounding fluid and naturally expand. In a low-gravity environment, the human spine lengthens, sequentially increasing a person's overall height by up to 2 inches. Feel that imagined spaciousness between your vertebrae. Sense the total absolute release of tension, running from the base of your skull all the way down to the lumbar curve of your lower back. If you were to gently kick the lunar dust, the particles would rise and fall in a flawless, predictable sequence. Because there is absolutely zero aerodynamic drag in this vacuum. Every single particle, regardless of its size, falls at the exact same rate. This is a perfect real-world demonstration of Galileo's equivalence principle. A massive boulder and a microscopic shard of glass will descend in a synchronized, perfectly symmetrical parabolic arc, returning to the ground in slow, harmonious unison. The universe is incredibly orderly. As the external observation of the eclipse gradually fades into the background of your mind, a mirrored sequence begins within your own biology. Your optic nerves, registering the quiet darkness of your closed eyes, send a direct chemical signal to a tiny region of the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This specialized cluster of cells controls your circadian rhythm. Step by step, it communicates with your pineal gland, initiating the synthesis and release of melatonin into your bloodstream. This biological cascade systematically lowers your core body temperature and instructs your cardiovascular system to gently decelerate. Your neural oscillations follow a similarly beautiful downward trajectory. The rapid active beta waves of your waking consciousness slow down, transforming into relaxed alpha waves before descending further into the restorative rhythm of delta waves. These deep sleep frequencies oscillate slowly and steadily, measuring strictly between 0.5 and 4 Hz. The rhythm of your brain is now syncing seamlessly with the slow, majestic orbital mechanics of the spheres above you. Microscopically, your cells are beginning the step-by-step process of mitosis, quietly repairing and regenerating tissues while you rest. The mechanics of your biology are just as reliable, just as perfectly orchestrated as the gravity holding the moon in orbit. You do not need to control it. You only need to surrender to the sequence. The environment surrounding your imagined form holds the oldest memory in the universe. The ambient temperature of empty space is not absolute zero. It sits at precisely 2.725 Kelvin. This incredibly faint, uniform warmth is the cosmic microwave background radiation. It is the stretched, cooled, fading echo of the Big Bang itself. a gentle, pervasive thermal signature that has been expanding and cooling for 13.8 billion years. It wraps around you like a blanket of ancient history, a soft, invisible reminder of the beginning of all things. Permit your physical form to become entirely heavy, anchored securely to the comfort of your bed, while your mind floats freely in the quiet dark. We are bringing this cosmic journey to a gentle, complete halt. There is nothing left to calculate. There is nothing left to observe. There is only the steady, rhythmic breathing of your own lungs, echoing the slow, cyclical motion of the planets. I am resting in the quiet center of the universe. My body is composed of ancient, eternal starlight. The mechanics of the cosmos are holding me safely in place. I am entirely supported by the invisible forces of gravity. My pulse is slow, matching the patient turning of the earth. Every cell in my body is undergoing perfect, quiet repair. I release all waking tension into the boundless architecture of space. The silence of the void is a blanket of absolute peace. I surrender my thoughts to the slow, steady rhythm of the night. The universe functions perfectly without my intervention. I am completely safe. I am deeply calm. I am stepping out of the light and moving into the restorative shade. The shadows provide comfort, cooling my mind and soothing my spirit. My breath is a tide, rising and falling with mathematical grace. I am grounded in the ancient history of the stars. There is nowhere else I need to be. There is nothing else I need to do. The orbital ballet continues, and I am safely tucked away in the dark. I welcome the profound, healing silence. I embrace the heavy, comforting pull of rest. I am at one with the infinite, sleeping cosmos. Good night.